Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. As we let everyone begin to trickle in, I want to do some quick introductions. My name is Kayla. I'm here from representing the Acelab team. We have Tony and Cheryl here from Lumabuilt, who will be guiding us through today's presentation. And before I pass it off to them, I would like to quickly show everyone where you can learn more about Lumabuilt on Acelab's website. All right, so here on Acelab, you can search for any specific vendor, manufacturer by just simply using the search bar at the very top of the screen. So if you want to find Lumabuilt, just type their name and you'll be brought to their brand page here. You can learn a little bit more about what they do, contact their team if you like. We have a few highlights and value propositions, videos, and then some products for you to explore. So you can click into any one of these products to get more information, save it to your firm library if you'd like for future reference. So definitely encourage you to check out this page at some point during or after today's presentation. We got some case studies as well as some photos and more information on contacting them at the very bottom. So yeah, feel free to check this out. I'll drop the link to their page in the chat. And then a few other housekeeping items to go over before we get started. Today is AIA-approved presentation. So we collected your AIA numbers upon registration. So you should already be good to go in terms of getting your credit. If you're worried about that you didn't give us your number, I'm going to give you all a form to fill out to ensure that you get credit. I'll drop that in the chat as well. And then a couple other things, we'll have a poll and a survey after the presentation. Also, anytime during the presentation, if you'd like to drop a question, we have a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Drop any questions there, and then towards the end of the presentation, we will go over those. And that's all that I have. So passing it off to you, Cheryl.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. Going to share my screen here so we can get started. And there we go. So yeah. So as both said, this is an AIA, it's an HSW CEU, so you're going to be earning 1 unit credit for attending. Sorry, I'm trying to minimize this so I could see. So just to help break up some of the technical aspect of the presentation, we've thrown in a few fun facts, just a little information that you might find interesting. This is the Washington Monument. It was completed in December of 1884. And at the top is a 9-inch aluminum pyramid, which completes the top of the structure. It's actually 100 ounces of solid aluminum, and it's part of the monument's lightning protection system. What I find interesting is that in the 1880s, aluminum was actually considered a rare metal, and it was selling for approximately $17.60 a pound. And today it sells for less than $1 a pound. And I always joke that I think that's the only thing that's gone down in price over the years. Just everything else would be going down like aluminum has over the years. Again, AIA, continuing education. This is just letting you know again that this is AIA HSW and you will earn 1 unit credit. The learning objectives of today's presentation are to distinguish between aluminum composite material, which is often referred to as ACM, and aluminum plate or sheet aluminum. We're going to hit on the performance characteristics of aluminum cladding, understanding manufacturing, material parameters, and design considerations. And then we're going to just hit on some of the health and environmental benefits of using aluminum as well. Another fun fact is that one of the reasons aluminum has become such a widely used metal in manufacturing is because of its lightweight characteristics. You'll find that on average, aluminum weighs 1/3 that of steel. It's something that you don't typically think about as an architect or designer. I know when I was doing design work, freight never crossed my mind, but freight rates have gotten quite substantially expensive over the past few years. And it can be the difference between keeping a product on a job and how we're having it beat out, because that's how expensive it's become. So you're just going to get a lot more product on a freight truck when you're dealing with lighter materials than heavier materials. So something that you might just want to keep in mind. Typical aluminum materials and systems in construction. So on the top left, you'll see aluminum composite, again, often referred to as ACM. And then in the center top, you'll have full depth aluminum plate. On the far right is aluminum single skin cladding, which is basically roofing material. On the bottom left, you'll see aluminum plank products. And then on the bottom right, you'll see architectural aluminum battens. So ACM by definition is a multi-layer composite. It utilizes two exterior sheets of aluminum. There are multiple core material options that are available, and then they're bonded together to form a single sheet. Now, if you look at the bottom left, you'll see a plastic corrugated core. In the center, you'll see a metal honeycomb core. And then on the far right is what you're going to be looking at for cladding for a building. And that's going to be either a solid PE, polyethylene, or an FR, fire retardant core. Now, if you're going to plan on using ACM higher than 40 feet on a building, you need to make sure that the product you're specifying is a FR core. You can only go as high as 40 feet if you're utilizing a polyethylene core. Now, if you look at the top right, you're going to see the composition of an FR or a PE core. It's actually 9 layers. And when they're all compressed, they're going to look like the far right picture on the left-hand side that you see with this different, the red, the gray, the yellow, and the white. But multiple, like I said, multiple core options, multiple core options are available. They're going to be available in a 4 millimeter or a 6 millimeter option. The fire rated core is standard in the construction industry. Signage industry is still using honeycomb core type materials, which is why I showed you those as well. But again, those are for signage and not to be used for building cladding. So ACM color options, there are some wood grains available. You'll see on the top right that there are a lot of bright colors that are also available. And then there are also some metallics and micas that are available. So the popularity of ACM is due to the rigidity. Again, the weight per square foot, it's just over 1.5 pounds per square foot. Rich color options, high surface flatness, which is great because you're not going to have a concern of oil canning on the product once it's installed. Again, fire resistant. And another great feature is that the sheets that are fabricated come in size. The sheets come size 60 inches by 192 inches. You'll have to eliminate an inch on each side for routing and returning. So that's going to give you a lot of flexibility and options for sizes that you can design with. Another great feature is that it's fabricated off-site. So that's going to help reduce labor costs on the job. You'll find that ACM is used frequently on curtain walls, indoor elements, accent bands, signage. Basically, you can use your imagination and incorporate it into any type of design that you can come up with. So your typical CNC table, which is basically the same type of table that's used to route and return, to fabricate countertops, is what is used to route and return ACM. If you look on the bottom right, you'll see a panel that's been routed, and then it gets returned where it's been routed. And what you can do on the top right here, if you'll see a U shape, what that does is allow for a nice corner edge on a building. And then if you look on the left side, you can route and return it into a Z panel, which will allow you to incorporate fins as a design feature. It's a great, inexpensive way of just, incorporating some architectural interest in a building, especially if there's not a tremendous budget. And the nice thing about it is you have the fin, and because of the building thermally moving, contracting, and expanding, you're not going to have to worry about that fin at some point coming loose because it's one solid piece that's been integrated into the design. And if sometimes when you add another element to a building over time, it can loosen up. And that's a nice thing about being able to incorporate the fins in the panel because you don't have to worry about that happening over time. So these are some typical ACM joint types. You'll see there's an exposed fastener, a non-exposed fastener, and then a wet seal fastener. Another interesting way of incorporating a design feature is by utilizing the joints as a design feature. You'll see on this particular building, which is Northern Arizona Science Museum, there's different reveals in between the panels. Now, a standard reveal is going to be a 1/2 inch. A maximum reveal can be up to 4 inches. So again, a nice way of incorporating some architectural interest to the building that won't break the bank. And something else that's really interesting is that the reveals do not have to be the same color as the panel. So if you wanted, I think about grout a lot of times in tile. That's been my background. So the first thing that comes to mind, because I think pretty much everyone can relate to tile. A lot of times you'll see a white tile and it'll have a white grout, but sometimes it has a gray or a black grout. So it's kind of that same concept. So if you want the reveal to, pop or give it some depth to in between the different panels, that's a great way of being able to do so. So ACM installations. On the far left, you're going to see it's actually one of the buildings at the University of Arizona. They thought outside the box, the architect. It's not just a square or a rectangle. He's actually incorporated triangles into the design. And you can also see there's different reveal widths. So some are narrow, some are thicker, just, adds a little bit of depth to the design. On the top right, you'll see that there's a building that's incorporated a lot of really bright colors, just to make the building pop. And on the bottom right, you'll see here something that I feel like I get specified more frequently. I live in Atlanta, so that's pretty typical color for a lot of the buildings that we have here, pretty neutral. So another fun fact is that aluminum is the world's most abundant metal. It consists of about 8.2% of the Earth's crust. And because there's so much aluminum that's readily available, it's typically going to cost a lot less than other more common metals that are used in construction. So a drain back ventilated rain screen system, there's no sealants or gaskets. Concealed fasteners are going to be your most popular. There's a lot of versatile framing options, fasteners, and attachment points. Coil coated ACM. That's what you're going to find is most popular. A lot of the big manufacturers and suppliers of ACM offer this coil. It's going to be coil coated, and it's all going to have a 20-year finish warranty on it. Something that's really important to note is that if you're going to utilize a metallic finish, it has a directional finish and layout, and it is very noticeable. I was presenting at a office downtown here in Atlanta, and all the architects said, look out the window. And sure enough, I was looking out, and on top of a big prominent building, there's a big chunk of the sign that was discolored. So, just make note of that. It could work in your favor. You could actually do a pretty cool pattern with it if, laid it out properly, but just something to note that it does have a directional finish and layouts. Something else that's really interesting about ACM is that you can get custom colors. So if you're working on a project and they wanted a branded color, that could be done. There's typically going to be a 5,500 square foot minimum to do so. This is a great example of an upscale branded color. This is a Chevy proprietary copyrighted color. So if you're driving down the road looking for a new Chevy truck, not sure where the dealership is, and then you see that big pop of blue, you're going to know that you found it. And now every time you drive by one, you're probably going to notice it, even if you hadn't really paid attention to it before, because I know I do. So just something to keep in mind if you're working with a chain or, a new prototype of some type of building and they wanted a branded color. Think about hotel chains, restaurants, things like that might want to develop a color like that. Think about Chick-fil-A. They're headquartered here in Atlanta, or the Golden Arches, things like that. Just keep in mind that that can be done if you need something that's a branded color. So ACM, it can be installed on an interior and an exterior wall, which is great because it really helps with the continuity. And another great feature of ACM is that it can be removed without affecting the integrity of the building. Say, heaven forbid, somebody had pulled in that car that you see there and accidentally hit the gas instead of the brake and put a big dent in one of the panels. It's not a huge concern because you'll be able to replace it, like I said, without affecting the integrity of the building. And some manufacturers will actually etch in the back of the panels, a sales order number, and the part number, so that it's a quick reference to be able to figure out what piece was damaged and have it reordered quickly. So keep that in mind too when you're looking at manufacturers for ACM. So I mentioned wet seal system. It says here water type building requirement, and it has a question mark. And that's because when you're dealing with a system that's supposed to keep water out, is this a good option? Not so sure. When you're dealing with a joint that's been filled in like this, as the building contracts and expands again, it's going to loosen up over time. And it's not the best design element, because what's going to happen is as it thermally moves and contracts, that joint filler is going to loosen up over time, could potentially crack. And who honestly is going to get back up on that big building and cut out all that material that's in the joints and refill it? And what happens is that mold and moisture are going to build up as water seeps into where it's cracked and loosened up over time. So it's not an ideal situation for keeping water out. A drain back ventilated rain screen system is going to be a much better option for you. So full depth aluminum plate. This is one of the most durable options for rain screens. It's impact resistant. It is recommended for high traffic areas. It installs very similar to ACM. There are multiple thickness options available, and there are multiple finish options that are also available, which include powder coating, wet paint, and sublimation. You may not know what sublimation is, but I'm going to get into that here in just a few minutes. So full depth aluminum plate, these are just a couple examples. On the far left, you'll see a copper color. So we were able, a finish of copper look was able to be adhered to this metal plate. And on the far right, you've got a teal green finish that's got sort of a pebble look to it. So it's basically, a strong metal plate that looks like something different, and maybe something that you wanted to use at some point, but just couldn't do it because you couldn't afford it, or maybe it just wasn't a type of product that you would typically want to use outside. So that's the beauty of plate. Zinc composite material can also be used for cladding. And I mentioned cost a few minutes ago. Zinc is very expensive. If you were to use zinc as cladding, natural zinc as cladding for a building, it's going to run material costs about $50 a square foot. Whereas you can take plate and give it the same look as zinc for about $25 material cost. So it would allow you to be able to maybe incorporate a design that you wanted. And I know I've worked with a couple folks, designers or architects that I've called on who said, oh, we're planning on using zinc. And I said, well, have you gotten a cost on it yet? And they're like, no. So when I tell them that, $50 versus $25, it definitely caught their attention, and something that you might want to consider as well. This is a great example of aluminum plate being installed. Obviously exposed to the elements, high traffic area going into this theater. Again, just reiterating 4 of the sheet sizes that are available for plate as well. Aluminum and copper, again, a natural metal that ensure durability in high traffic areas, are just going to be much more costly. Here you can see on the escalator going up, ACM has been utilized, and on the wall that you see that copper color, or I guess more of a, I'm not sure what color, copper type color is being used for the walls, and that's plate. If you tried to mix the colors or match the colors, even if you could, they're not going to look the same, and they could potentially fade different if sunlight were to hit them. So better to keep them in their separate spaces, like you see here. So aluminum single skin cladding. This is basically roofing material. It's great. It's a very economical cladding option when you compare it to other aluminum cladding options, because there are a wide variety of profiles and a lot of different color options available. It's readily available as well. I think most roofing companies can provide you any type of different shape or profile or color that you're looking for as well. It's lightweight, it's easy to install, corrosion resistant, and energy efficient, and it can also be used in some coastal areas as well. One thing you have to be very cognizant of when you're using single skin cladding is oil canning. I mentioned that earlier, and if you're not familiar with it, this is what oil canning effect is. And it's very common when you use a single sheet. You know, I went over ACM and you saw that there's 9 sheets that compromise that, make up the sheet of ACM. Well, this is just a single skin aluminum. So it's very thin, very flexible. And when you install it, especially over an open frame, an open substrate like you see here, you're very likely to experience this look. And if it's not a look you're going for, it can be a real problem. I've been in a few offices where they were having issues as I was speaking, and it was a big headache for them. So please keep that in mind, that you don't want to, you know, unless you're looking for that oil canning effect, you don't want to install single skin over an open substrate. So these are some typical aluminum profile wall panels with concealed fasteners. You'll see on the top left that there's a Bermuda style, which is available in 3 different sizes. There's a box style. There's a flush wall style. Different manufacturers offer different thicknesses, so you need to make sure that you consult each manufacturer or whatever manufacturer you're looking at utilizing. These, again, are available in a wide range of PVDF colors. Again, dozens of profiles available, and there's ability to perforate. Again, not every manufacturer offers perforation, but a lot of them do. I was actually in Kentucky, and one of the firms had specified perforated, and it was, I guess, pretty big job. And whoever they got the material from perforated it after it was colored. Not ideal, obviously, because every hole had a little silver ring around it. So just be careful that, you know, who you're getting your material from or specifying from, you know, it's better than to do something like that, because these are going to be primarily used over solid substrates because, again, it's going to help reduce that risk of oil canning. So these are some typical aluminum profile wall panels with exposed fasteners. You'll see in the top left is a 7.2 style. There's a corrugated style. Again, thicknesses vary by manufacturer, colors. These can be perforated as well, but you're going to need to consult the manufacturer for the specifics on it. And these can be used over open frames and solid substrates. And the bolder and deeper those ribs are that you see, the more strength it's going to provide to the product. These are some examples of installations. On the far left, flush wall panel, horizontal application where they've used multiple colors. You can see the perforated is what's used on the open substrate because you're not going to have to worry about that oil canning effect. And then you've got the solid on the solid substrate. Now on the far right, you've got 3 different types, the 3 different sizes of Bermuda panel that have been used just to help give, you know, provide some interest to it. If you were able to see the whole project, it's a metallic finish, so they actually made a little pattern with that as well. So again, just some ways of, if you're on a tight budget, utilizing single skin to provide some, you know, interest to a building. Here we've got a batten style roof panel used as wall cladding. I see that pretty frequently in industrial type areas. I've seen it in a lot of garages, but it is a vertical application, solid color on a solid substrate. And then on the far right, you've got a flush soffit panel, just a soffit application with a wood grain finish. And it's also installed on a solid substrate. So, bus station in Las Vegas, before you all hopped on the call, we were actually talking about weather. It gets very hot, as we all know, in Las Vegas, out in Arizona. The beauty, this is a bus station that's actually in Las Vegas. And the beauty of perforated sheet metal is that it can help with heat dissipation. I'm sure that's why they've utilized this perforated sheet metal in this application, because I'm sure it gets extremely hot in there. Something else to keep in mind is that perforated sheet metal can also help with noise reduction. So if you're ever working on a project that's on a really busy area, or remodeling something, and keep in mind that that might be a good way to help with the noise reduction and also heat dissipation. Like I said, if you've got direct sunlight hitting this office. So single skin can also provide great pops of color. This is the Equine and Bovine Center. It's at Midwestern University in Chandler, Arizona. I'm sure the budget for an Equine and Bovine Center wasn't tremendous. I don't know their school colors. This could be a school color for them, but it truly, brightened up the space. It would have been kind of washed out if it was just those terracotta looking tiles. So something to, also keep in mind for areas like that. This is another example of single skin. It would be kind of washed out, this building. It's just a car wash, but it certainly added a nice pop of color with a single skin on it. This to me is probably the most interesting fun fact that we offer in this presentation. I'm sure we all know that aluminum is 100% recyclable. I did not, until I read this though, realize that aluminum can be recycled indefinitely without losing any of its properties. I think that's pretty cool. And another interesting fact is that about 75% of all aluminum that's ever been produced is still in use today. So if you happen to be working on any projects where it's a green building or you need lead points for the project, aluminum is definitely a great type of product that you would want to consider for cladding. So I mentioned sublimation a couple times to get the finishes, like I said, on plate. To sublimate means to turn into a gas. And that's the type of process that's used to reproduce a pattern or an image using a heat transfer film. And what is used here is a powder-coated sublimation process. And like I said, this is going to create decorative finishes that, reproduce natural materials. Like you'll get a wood grain, you can get a marble look, you can get a weathered steel, anything that you can think of is going to be able to be reproduced onto here using a film. You see the film there. Now these films have there's a special film that has a special ink on it, and each one will have, they come in rolls of 3,500 square feet. So these rolls of film, and they could have either, like I said, a wood grain, a metal, anything you can, pretty much think of, it could be on there. Before an extruded aluminum piece can be sublimated, the key thing about that, in order to do it, is it's a critical requirement, is that whatever you're going to sublimate has to be able to withstand 392-degree temperature without deformation. That's because it takes that temperature to turn that ink that's on that film into a gas that will attach to the powder coating that's on there. Remember, I said this was a powder coated sublimation process. So when we know that it can, whatever needs to be sublimated can withstand that 392-degree temperature, it's going to be pre-treated really well. And that's going to ensure a high quality powder coating on the product. And so once it's been powder coated and it's gone into an oven to bake, once it gets pre-treated, it gets powder coated using these electrostatic guns, and then it goes into an oven and bakes on. And what that powder coating is going to do is protect that plank or batten or whatever extruded aluminum that's going to be sublimated. It's going to protect it against weather, corrosion, and abrasion. And if any of you are joining me from Colorado or on the West Coast, I know red line has been a big deal out there. I don't get asked about it much. I cover the East Coast, but just an FYI, our powder coatings are made of polyester or polyurethane resins, so they're totally free of solvents and heavy metals. That becomes, a question for any of the projects that you're working on. So this is where we begin the sublimation process. You can see on the top left, there's an extruded plank. It now is powder coated, so it's got a light powder coating on it. So if the film that's going to be used, this happens to be a light wood grain, then you're going to have a light powder coating on it typically. So here you can see it's got a gold powder coating on it. And then the film is getting ready to be wrapped around it airtight. And when that's done, it goes into this oven. Now this oven and the films that are on this particular presentation come from Italy. They're from a company called Decoral, Decoral. And they do have a North American headquarters in Miami. So if the manufacturer you're looking at has certain sample chips that they offer as standards, but you don't see what you're looking for, you can go to Decoral's website because they have hundreds of different patterns and images that you can select from. Say if you really did want a marble. I don't think anybody that I'm aware of that uses this process offers a marble, but they do. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You could go on their website and see first if you can find finish that you're looking for. That would be the best course of action. They will try and match something if you can't find what you need. I believe they'll try 3 times. So it's, you know, a great company to utilize for specials that you need, special patterns or images. So anyway, this goes into this oven, as I mentioned. It's in there for about 10 minutes. It gives it enough time to turn that ink on that film into a gas that attaches to the powder coating. And then when it comes out, you can see on the bottom left that exhausted film is blown off and removed. And then what you end up with for this particular example from this manufacturer are planks and battens. So here you can see there's different wood grains that have been reproduced. Planks, different manufacturers offer different plank sizes. These happen to be available in a 2.5 inch wide, a 4 inch wide, a 6 inch wide, an 8 inch wide, and a 10 inch wide. They can be interchangeable. These come 24 foot in length. There are trims and extrusions available. You know, consult the manufacturer you're looking at because most of them should have that. Battens in this particular situation, they range anywhere from a 1x3 to a 2x8 that can be installed vertically or horizontally. They are available in a 1 or 2 piece. They also come 24 foot in length. And again, wood grain, solid colors, patterns, pretty much, you know, anything you can think of can be reproduced on these different planks and batten sizes. So why wood grain aluminum? I know you all are probably joining from different areas. I happen to have a deck. Not everybody has, you know, Florida, they don't really have any decks, but mine starts looking like this if it's not kept up. And it's not a great look, especially if you're not in a coastal area. I don't think my neighbors would appreciate it, but it's a lot of work to maintain. Fences as well. If you're using any type of wood fence, you know, after a few years, it starts to look like this. And then it becomes a lot of, you know, like I said, maintenance to keep it up. On the far right here, you have to, you know, just be cognizant of using composites because they risk permanent staining very easily if they're not taken care of and cleaned, you know, fairly quickly. They're also a lot heavier type of material. So product advantages of aluminum versus fiber cement or wood. It's very simple to install. As I mentioned earlier, it's 100% recyclable. It is a rain screen system, so it holds no moisture. It's going to be lighter weight per square foot. It won't crack or fracture over time or during installation. Cutting apart is airborne particulate free. Very realistic color finishes available. Another great thing is that it's insect proof. I remember before taking my job at Lumabuilt, seeing in McDonald's that had recently been remodeled and seeing all this wood planks on, and I thought, what in the world are they thinking? That's going to be a nightmare in a couple of years. It's going to look awful. I had no idea how far technology had come. I mean, I knew it had in tile, but I didn't realize this was offered. So you are going to get a very realistic look. Most companies are going to offer, as far as finish, warranty, 15 years. Some do offer an extended warranty. I believe it costs a little bit more, but there's definitely a nice warranty finish available. And again, it's wood look, but it's insect proof. You have to worry about, you don't have to worry about termites. It's going to require minimal maintenance. And for anybody who may be looking to use or transition from an exterior to an interior, looking at a wood grain, it's non-combustible. It's Class A fire rated, so you don't have to worry about being able to transition into the interior of the building. So sublimated aluminum applications. There's a lot of different applications, including soffits, siding, canopies, screen walls, privacy fencing, sunshades and louvers, signage, interiors. This is a great example. This building looks very commercial, but it was actually transitioned into condominiums. Adding the soffit, the wood grain planks and the soffit really softened it up. It made it look a lot more inviting, a lot more residential looking. I'm seeing a lot more of this as I travel around, a lot of wood grain being added to buildings like this, especially condominiums. There we go. So weathering steel finish. This is another example maybe where you wanted to use Corten in a design feature, but didn't dare because it would have been a rusty, drippy mess. Obviously, this is not Corten, or that white stucco below it would be a hot mess, and it is not. It looks beautiful. This is another finish that's offered, sublimating aluminum planks. Plates for lighting can also be sublimated. If you're working on a higher end project and they don't want to just cut out lights, in the field, you need to ask the manufacturer to make sure whatever the plate is, again, can withstand that 392-degree temperature, but it can be done as you see here. So here's a great example. Maybe, I don't know if they wanted some texture. I'm not familiar with this project, but maybe the budget was a little tight and they couldn't do planks everywhere, but they've incorporated some corrugated single skin vertically and then some aluminum planks horizontally on the project. It's a great look. Here is a casino resort out in El Cajon, California. You can see in the porte cochere where the circular lights are in the ceiling there, where planks have been installed, and around the entryway of the door. Beautiful project, really softened it up. If it had been all Stexon, like you see, it would have been pretty washed out. So that really added an element of softness and elegance to the building. And here's a great example of a Marriott. It's actually in Phoenix, Arizona. And I like this photo because it shows you where they've mixed colors. I mentioned earlier, a few slides back, that you can mix colors with planks. You can also mix sizes. So this is just a great example of that. And here is a multi-purpose, it's near a stadium, but it's a pavilion that's near the stadium that had for it's a multi-purpose pavilion for different events. But you can see how realistic and nice all of those planks look in the soffit and down the walls. If anybody joined us who is working on any interiors, this is just some suggestions, another, again, for being able to install planks, but utilizing lighting in between, just for interest in the building. One at the top left happens to be the Arizona Science Center in Phoenix. So here's another great example. Here you'll see multiple aluminum products being utilized. This is a Sienna House Hotel in Hilton in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you look in the porte cochere, you can see, it's kind of a little dark, but you can see that there are some planks there. Also, under all of the windows, you'll see aluminum planks, and then all of the ACM in the dark color, the gray color, grayish black color is ACM. So here's just showing you sublimated trim. So the planks are all sublimated, but trim is typically sublimated to match. Most manufacturers are going to offer you sublimated trim that's been sublimated. It's extruded aluminum. Should be. You should make sure that the trim is going to match the planks. It should be extruded aluminum that's been sublimated to match. You don't want something that's painted or doesn't look the same, because it's not going to look very realistic, and it's going to take away from the look of the project. This particular one is sublimated extruded aluminum trim. You need to attach signage through the planks. A lot of manufacturers, you can do that with. You just need to make sure that the company that you're specifying, that can be done. that it's not going to be an issue. So planks, these are just your manufacturer that you're using should have details available for installation of their planks or battens or whatever the case may be. This is just showing you, for example, here's a horizontal installation for the planks. You'll see there's a hat channel by others. Here is a vertical installation, a very simple installation process. And here's one that's actually a horizontal installation with a vent. So if you were going to incorporate a vent into the, looks like a soffit, then this would be a detail for doing so. And you'll see on the bottom left, it says J closure. A lot of manufacturers offer a J closure that you can fill drill weep holes. That'll just allow on a vertical application for water to drain out as well. This is an example of a clip system and how the clips, how it joins the planks together. And here's just some line drawings of some different basic trims that are available from various manufacturers. On the bottom left is that little, it doesn't have anything written there, but it's the J closure that I mentioned on the prior slide. So installation guidelines for siding and soffits. You should always utilize a manufacturer's installation guide. DBV rain screen system can be installed directly to a substrate. However, it's recommended that you use a hat channel because it's going to allow for better moisture weep. Matching extruded trim components are typically available. Clips vary. Some are stainless steel. Some allow for expansion and contraction. So just, do your due diligence on that. Make sure that the clip is stainless steel, not plastic, not something that's going to rust, that's, durable. And if you need it, make sure that the company provides matching end caps and make sure those are also metal and not plastic. You want to make sure that they match nicely. And then, as you can see, the planks, typically you're going to use a non-exposed fastener system. So a batten system, again, available, you'll find that they're available in solid or two pieces, and they do allow for tremendous aesthetics on a building, as you can see here. They're typically going to be, available in various sizes and shapes. You can mount them, again, horizontally, vertically, at an angle. They do offer a lot of strength. However, they are architectural, they're not structural. So you need to make sure that in your design, they are being attached to a solid structure. This is an example of some two-piece batten that was installed at Nobu. Above that were all those battens that the prior screen was showing. So again, Class A fire rated, so you're able to use it on the battens here on the ceiling. I don't have to worry about fire rating. So I mentioned there was a 1 and 2 piece batten. If you're able to install the batten where the attachment won't show, this is a great example. Then you would be able to use a 1 piece batten. This is a great example of a 1 piece batten being installed at some cabanas. And here are also some battens on a grocery store. It has ACM on it, and then also some planks. And this is just a quick section elevation view of the battens being installed. More varying situations of them being installed. How they can be attached. Give you a second, look at that, but. Typically, signage can be installed through battens as well. You see here. And here's a great example of battens being utilized, again, attached to a solid substrate, but it looks really beautiful. You don't have to, again, worry about maintaining it. Just wash it with some mild soap and water. Worry about it fading. Looks beautiful. And here is another example of, again, a lot of aluminum being utilized here. You can see the dark is all ACM. You can see battens being utilized for architectural interests. And then in the porte cochere, again, you can see planks. And the cool thing about this particular job, they actually utilize lighting. The white that you see in between the different sections in the porte cochere there is lighting. So they lit up the different sections, which is really pretty. So design criteria. Purpose, form, function testing. These are some examples of required testing, which are going to obviously vary by product type and state, but these are some that you will typically need to be looking at. The manufacturer that you're specifying should be able to provide these different required testing sheets for you. So the single source metal supplier has a lot of advantages. Multiple product lines create a complete cladding system. Custom finishes can be matched to existing materials. A lot of manufacturers can do ACM to window mullions, sheet metal roofing or siding, perforated metal, custom sheet metal fabrications, custom trim, extrusions, pretty much anything you can think of. It's a great thing about aluminum in construction. I don't know what happened. I was supposed to say thank you. That was weird. So that's going to be the end. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you,
Y'all are still
Cheryle.
there.
Yeah, I have some few that came on my end, and then it looks like we have a few in the chat. So folks, if you do have questions, now's the time, so feel free to drop them in the Q&A. We'll go ahead and start with, it looks like people are asking about the recording and the slides. The recording will be, should be available on our website in just a few days. Cheryle, are you guys willing to share the slides as well, or?
Sure.
Okay, good to know. So we'll keep track of the folks that want to get the slides afterwards to pass those along. All right, so what kind of impact resistance do the aluminum battens have in case of hail?
That is something I would have to get to you. Tony, are you still on? Do you happen to know?
I do not know that exact answer. I do know that it's been asked. But yeah, we'll have to get back to you on that, unfortunately.
No worries.
It hasn't been a problem. So I hasn't something that's come up that you're actually the first question in 2 years that I've had anybody ask me about hail. Usually it's about salt water, sea salt. So yeah.
I know that it does have impact resistance. I don't know the exact numbers and everything, so Cheryle can get that information and send
Yeah,
it back
we'll
to
find
you.
that out for you and get that back to you.
Sounds good. Next question. Is it economical to also use ACM for wall hung, I don't know how to say that, wall hung flat metal awnings above entrances?
As a canopy? I guess as a well, we don't make canopies, but it can be. I've seen a lot of ACM added to canopies. And I guess it depends on the quantity that you need and who you're getting it from.
Okay.
It can be. I mean, it gets used a lot for that type of entryway. So it's going to, there's some factors that play into it. It's going to depend on the color. It's going to depend on the quantity. So those are all factors that play into it. But like I said, and if you're bundling, if you're using different types of aluminum products, like planks, battens, and then you do some ACM, there was a couple in the slides that I showed you where multiple products were being used. And typically you're going to get a much better price if you're bundling stuff from a manufacturer. But it's probably in line with any other type of product you're going to use as far as canopy type work.
Mhm. Perfect. All right, next we have, are tariffs going to impact the pricing?
From our company? No. They are not, because our products are USA made.
Perfect. That's great. Yeah. Thank you.
Um,
We have, how are the ends of the battens finished?
How are the edges? Is that what you said?
Yeah, ends, edges. Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, the ends they have end caps that are extruded aluminum. Ours are exactly like the planks, the battens themselves. They are extruded aluminum. They've been sublimated just like the planks, so they're going to match perfectly.
Amazing. All right. Is there a specific minimum gauge needed to avoid oil canning?
No, not that I'm aware of. If you're going to put it on an open substrate, like you saw, it's probably going to oil can because it's just a single skin. It doesn't matter. It doesn't vary that much on the thickness of the single skin to avoid it.
Mhm. Gotcha. Perfect. All right. So how strong and clean is the 90-degree bending?
Of the ACM,
Mhm.
it must be the ACM because we don't bend the other stuff.
Mhm.
Strong and clean. Well, it gets, I mean, it's a lot at CNC on that CNC table. It should be pretty squared up. I mean, it gets measured by machinery, bent perfectly along the, where it's been routed and returned. So
Mhm.
shouldn't be any problems with it. It should be pretty much a straight, spot on 90-degree angle.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. Yeah. Thank you. And then I have a couple questions, are both pretty similar. Both asking what the installation and I'm just trying to combine these two questions.
Yeah, no worries.
The installation and the battens, how they're suited for northern colder climates.
I've actually been working on a couple projects up in Boston, which gets pretty cold there. They're very well suited for that. The key about it's not the battens, it's how they're installed, making sure that it can withstand snow loads and things like that. Our company offers design assist. I'm working on a senior living, 4 different buildings, and they're wanting to run the battens all the way up 4 stories. And our engineers looked over the plans and told them exactly what they would need to do, how it needed to be connected. So if that's what you're referring to, we can take a look at it. But as far as withstanding the temperatures, there's not a problem at all. It's not going to, nothing's going to happen to it. It's fine in cold weather.
Perfect. All right, I've got a couple more here. How easily workable are the profile membranes to fit varying measurements?
For which product? Profile membrane.
I'm not sure. It doesn't say.
Yeah.
Mohammed, if you have extra details, maybe you can drop that in the Q&A of which product you're referring to. All right, and the last one is also a little bit vague, so I'm not sure. Maybe you can
Okay.
speak to a few different products in this case. They're just wondering if it can be rounded.
ACM can be rounded, but the others cannot be rounded.
Awesome. Let's see. I think I got all of the questions so far.
Yeah, if
Right.
anybody comes up with something later, feel free. Just, I'm not sure how that works with Acelab, but I'm more than happy to get answers to questions. But I know sometimes it takes you a minute to process it, and then something may come up. And you all have my contact information, I believe. I'm more than happy to help. And if I cover the East Coast out to Chicago, Boston, and Kansas, and then have colleagues that cover the other states. But if anybody would like a presentation at their office, please feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to come and meet you all, get you samples. If you need samples of anything or a catalog, we're more than happy to get anything like that for you if you just let me know.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have a post survey that's going to pop up right after the webinar ends. There is an option to select, I think actually in the poll response, should have already selected if anybody wants samples or future contact, we'll make sure to open that line of communication between you two. But yeah, I really appreciate the presentation. I think it was very thorough. So thank you for that, Cheryle.
You're
Any
welcome.
last comments?
It's more interesting when I'm in person and I have samples to show you. It's very difficult to do this virtually.
Yes, let's set up some
I'll
in-person
say.
lunch and learn. I agree, yeah.
And if anybody wants samples, they can reach out to us and we'll be happy to send them samples.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We have a sample change set for the mosaic, which is the battens and the planks. And then we have proprietary colors for the ACM. And something I did want, if I'm allowed to talk about it on there, I guess. We fabricate ACM. We're not just a distributor of ACM sheets. So if you order from us, you're going to get a finished product. The panels are going to be fabricated to your specifications and the field measurements. We have our own proprietary ACM colors, but we also purchase sheets from Lumabuilt, Renabon, and Alpolic. And the reason that's beneficial is that if you were to, like you saw some of these projects where they've used ACM battens and planks, bundling again, I can't stress that enough because it really does help with freight. And GCs love having to deal with only one manufacturer, not 3 different vendors that you've selected from when it comes to aluminum. So it's a huge plus. They're happy, makes your life a lot easier. And something I couldn't talk about because it's a generic presentation is that when I talked about plate, I told you it was a lot more durable. Any of the finishes that you can put on the battens or the planks can also be put on plate. I was talking about Boston. I'm working on a Hilton up in Boston, and he needed planks. He picked our color, but he also needed big panels of the same finish. He said, "What about ACM?" I said, "Well, ACM's got a completely different finish, and it's not going to match exactly, but we can do our plate." So I was able to get him, I think he needed like a 40 by 60 inch panel in the same finish as the planks. And we were able to put that same finish on the plate. That makes sense. So if you want to use plate, and like I got us on Hilton's preferred provider list. So I'm working on a lot of Hilton properties, and they're starting to incorporate more wood grain. So if you wanted to do say you were just doing battens, but you needed big panels of wood grain that match the battens, we can do that with the plate. So I wanted to make sure that you all understood the plate a little better. It's hard for me because I can't talk about our stuff when we're going through it as we go, but any of our samples that you get for the mosaic can be also applied to, like I said, the plate.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's really helpful to know too. Amazing. Any last final notes before we end today's webinar?
I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone's time. Hopefully we'll hear from you. And like I said, I'd love to come by and see you at your office or work with you on any projects you might have upcoming. Great product, great company. Been in business over 30 years. And again, USA made, which I think is tremendous, especially in these days.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.